Hello, Garp.
Hey, that's one right there!
How dare you show your face here after what you've done!
There's something deeply tragic about Monkey D. Garp. Not because he was weak, not because he failed, but because he spent his entire life standing between worlds that could never truly coexist. The Marines, his family, justice, freedom, and somewhere between all of them, Garp slowly became a man forced to live with impossible choices. Because when people talk about Garp, they usually talk about his strength, the hero of the Marines, Roger's rival, or the man who cornered the Pirate King countless times. But the more I thought about his story, the more I realized something. Garp may be one of the saddest characters in all of One Piece, because despite being called a hero, he could never save the people closest to him. One of the strangest relationships in One Piece is the one between Garp and Roger, because in another life, they probably could have been best friends openly, not enemies, not legends, just two stubborn men laughing somewhere beside the sea. And maybe that's what makes their dynamic so important. Roger was everything the world government feared: freedom without restraint, a man impossible to control, and yet Garp respected him, not because Roger was perfect, but because Garp understood him. That detail says a lot about Garp's character. See, deep down, he never truly hated pirates, at least not all of them, because Garp understood something the world government pretends not to understand. Some pirates are more human than the people calling themselves righteous. And that's probably why Roger trusted Garp with Ace. Think about how insane that is. The Pirate King entrusted his son to the greatest marine alive. Not because Garp represented the law, but because Roger believed Garp still had humanity inside him. And honestly, he was right. There's a detail about Garp that always fascinated me. He repeatedly refused becoming an admiral. Now, most people treat that like a funny character quirk, but it's actually incredibly revealing, because becoming an admiral means becoming directly controlled by the celestial dragons, and Garp hated them. Not quietly either, openly, which creates one of the most interesting contradictions in One Piece. Garp serves the Marines while fully understanding the corruption sitting above them. And maybe that's why his character feels so heavy, because Garp isn't ignorant. He knows the cruelty, all the lies, the slavery, and the hypocrisy, but he stays anyway. Why? Because unlike Dragon, Garp chose stability over revolution. He convinced himself that protecting ordinary people mattered more than destroying the system itself. And maybe that decision haunted him for the rest of his life. Now, for all his legendary strength, Garp repeatedly fails to save the people he loves the most. Ace becomes a pirate, Dragon becomes a revolutionary, and Luffy declares war against the world government itself. Even his own bloodline rejects the path he tried to create for them. And honestly, there's something painfully human about that. Garp can fight emperors, destroy mountains with a fist, challenge Roger himself, but he cannot control the hearts of his family. And despite how loudly he acts, Garp often feels exhausted underneath it all. Even the way he falls asleep during meetings feels different in hindsight, almost like exhaustion follows him everywhere. Staying awake means thinking too much. Then Marineford happens, and everything finally breaks apart. Because for the first time in his life, Garp is forced to choose between justice and love publicly, not internally, not philosophically, physically, in front of the entire world. See, the most tragic part of Marineford is that Garp doesn't fight. That's what hurts, because everybody watching knows something terrifying. If Garp truly chose Ace, Marineford changes completely. Even Sengoku understood that. That's why he physically restrained him, because beneath all the laughter, all the sleeping, and all the legends, Garp loved Ace like a family. And for one brief moment, the hero of the Marines nearly abandoned everything. But he doesn't move, and Ace dies right in front of him. And honestly, I don't think Garp ever recovered from that completely. Not outwardly, but internally. Something changes forever. Then we have the Dawn, one of the most emotionally devastating scenes in the entire story. Because the Don says something that Garp himself could not say out loud. She blames him, not as a
You
Marine,
stood
not
here
as a
and
hero,
watched that boy
but as
die!
family. And Garp just
Care
stands
more
there and
about your
takes it,
damn job
not
than
defending
family!
himself,
The great
not
hero of the
arguing, and
nation,
not
I
even
hope you're proud
retaliating.
of yourself, you
Because deep
mindless piece
down,
of
he
crap!
probably believes she's right. See, what makes Garp such a painful character is that he understands too much. He understands Roger, he understands freedom, and he understands the corruption. But unlike Dragon, he never fully rebelled. And unlike Luffy, he never fully chose freedom either. He remained trapped between worlds, too human to become a perfect Marine, too loyal to fully abandon the institution. And maybe that's the real meaning behind his title, the hero. Because titles in One Piece often become cages, and Garp spent his entire life carrying one, a hero to the world, while privately failing the people he loved the most. And maybe that's why Garp feels so tragic. Not because he lacked strength, but because strength couldn't solve the kind of pain he carried. Some battles cannot be punched away, some regrets survive forever. And maybe that's the cruel irony of Monkey D. Garp. The man feared across the entire sea could never truly protect his family from the world he served.
You're wrong. Garp is suffering? No. The only one who's really suffering here is Luffy, damn it!